when they say limit or everyone has a limit, for example, now, they often mention in conversations that someone is following the ways of Satan. So what is that? They say 750,000 years. Satan worshipped Allah, the Exalted. He had such deeds. In fact, Sheikh Nazim, may Allah sanctify his secret, also used to say that Satan had prostrated on every inch of the earth. Just think about that. He was truly a person of such deeds. For a long period, like 750,000 years, he did whatever Allah the Exalted commanded. There was never any opposition or defiance. In the end, he says, after all that time, look, such a long period has passed, now after such a long time, right? You would think you should have known him better by then. What kind of Allah, the Exalted, is before you? He acts even more sincerely toward him. When you should be able to do that, look, now Allah the Exalted commanded, right? He says, to Prophet, prostrate to Adam. But it's not a prostration of worship. Let's not misunderstand that part either. I mean, it's a prostration of respect. He said, prostrate to him. Satan said, wait there. He said, for 750,000 years, I did whatever you said, but this just doesn't sit right with me. Look, that was the limit for Satan. The limit of his love. When he got there, he hit his limit. What kind of prayer comes to mind here? May my Lord grant us to be limitless, right? May our submission have no limits, inshallah, so that even if something doesn't make sense to us, we can still say, as you command. Isn't that right? But what happens if there is a limit? He already says, as long as it makes sense to you, there's no problem. The point is, giving you as an example, right? Brother Alpa, he says the point is there. In the place where it doesn't make sense to you, to be able to say, as you command, to be able to show that submission. But as soon as, so to speak, it starts to touch us even a little, we start thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't play after all. We start to complain, saying, this game is a bit hard, isn't it? But actually, that's where the secret lies. If only we could show a little patience. And look, he says it so beautifully there. He says, for 750,000 years, he did whatever he was told. And while doing all this, he was apparently in a state of affection. You know, even Satan loved Allah the Exalted, he says. But that love only goes so far. After that, it's not enough. So what needs to happen after that? Teacher? After that, it's what we call love, the thing made up of just 3 letters. But if only we knew what kind of thing it really is. That's when that thing comes into play, the one we would never let slip from our hands, our tongues, our eyes, or our hearts, from that threshold onward. If you reach that love, know that you've made it. Why? Because he says, a person in love is colored by the hue of his beloved. He truly becomes that person. Look, these aren't my words, they're his own words. He truly becomes that person. The lover doesn't even truly entertain the thought in his mind or heart that his deeply beloved could ever possibly harm him, he absolutely says. You see, the thing we fear most is that something bad might happen to us. Look, he still calls that being in love, because he doesn't expect anything like that from his beloved. In other words, he's already become the lover. He says it's because he doesn't expect anything like that. So you need that kind of love above that threshold. With love, there's absolutely no need for anything else. Everything is resolved right here. For example, I just happened to think of something quite specific and important in my heart, and then, quite suddenly and unexpectedly, Mr. Mehmet himself shows up with precisely that very thing. I ask, why did you bring this? And he says, I don't even know. I ask, why come, Selim, like you came? He says, honestly, so suddenly I didn't understand myself. He says, I've been dealing with you since last night. He says, me too. He says, I've never left your mind. Just look. Do you see how it works? That's where love comes into play. Once it happens, boundaries and such, it's all just a story. May God grant it to all of us. What? To be able to live without limits, God willing.